Now in today's video, we're going to be looking through my top transfer recommendations ahead of Game Week 6. We're also going to be looking at players and teams you should be looking to target if you are on that wildcard as well. So make sure you're hitting that like button, subscribing for plenty more content. Now starting off our transfer targets video, as we always do, we look at the goals and clean sheet odds from Fantasy Football Hub. Obviously, if you want to go and check out their amazing website, there is a link in the description, and they are currently still running their 50% off sale. I believe it does end at the end of September, so please go and take full advantage of that while you still can. I do feel this is a really useful tool to be kind of looking at just one game weeks, because sometimes we can get lost up looking in, 5-6 game weeks time. Sometimes it does help just concentrate on one game week and see which teams and which players we should be looking to target. So despite a difficult away fixture on paper, it still fancies Manchester City to do quite well, both in terms of predicted goals and for clean sheets as well. So Haaland still could be a great captaincy option for that one. Arsenal only fancied for clean sheets rather than projected goals, which does seem a little bit strange for me considering how poor Leicester have started this season. I would have imagined the projected goal numbers would have been a little bit higher. However, as we'll come on to see with the 11FI model a little bit later, they do have them a lot higher. So maybe one that could be adjusted as we kind of progress through the week. I imagine when we get to that Rob T FPL data as well, the betting data, it will have the projected goals a little bit higher. Liverpool's are the best on this list. Really, really good projected goal numbers, and of course those projected clean sheets as well with a 41% chance. So maybe it might be worth holding on to the likes of Salah and of course potentially Trent and Robertson as well for the upcoming weeks. It does look like, Wolves are a struggling side this season, and if you're thinking about maybe making that switch to Saka from Salah, maybe this might potentially make you reconsider it. Or if you're on a wild card this week, maybe it could be worth looking at trying to get Haaland, Salah and Saka all within a draft, or maybe dropping Saka and potentially shift into a defender with really, really good projected odds for Liverpool coming up. And then Spurs as well, they're also fancied to do quite well against United. We'll be talking about some of their players. Aston Villa away at Ipswich as well should be another fixture we should be looking to target for next game week as well. Right, let's move on to the 11FI data. Obviously, if you want to go and check this out for yourself, a link in the description. Starting off with clean sheet percentages for the next 5 game weeks. As we can see, it is dominated by both Manchester City and Arsenal over the next few weeks. So definitely bodes well in terms of picking up some of their defensive assets. Now with City, there is that risk and rotation, so it is going to be hard to decipher which assets to potentially be going for on the 6th wildcard. Maybe Ederson. I don't really like going for Ederson. He's a massive troll, but maybe because of the uncertainty around that back line, he could be a potential option. Definitely the likes of Gabriel and Saliba with a 57 and 58% chance over the next few weeks. As you can see, Liverpool's next two aren't the worst either, so it could be worth holding on to both Trent and Robertson if you can obviously move to the Arsenal defenders on top of that. But I would say after probably match day 8, you do want to start to potentially look to shift off them. Everton do have some pretty good projected numbers despite them doing very, very disappointing at the start of this season. I think when Branthwaite comes back, we will see a lot more rigid Everton defence. They didn't actually concede too much. XG conceded today, so maybe it is a sign of things to come. Brentford, with their long impressive fixture run as well, I think the likes of Flecken, Ajer, Pinnock will definitely be on people's wildcards as well, and definitely would be a team I would be looking to target, not only defensively but also attackingly if I was on a game week 6 wildcard as well. Nottingham Forest have got some really, really good clean sheet percentage numbers in here as well, so Aina's going to be quite a popular pick. Murillo as well, and Sells in goal, again all worth some consideration on the wildcard for the future weeks coming up. And Aston Villa's, there's still a steady trajectory of decent clean sheet odds, so Konza at 4.5 with his versatility, definitely worth considering in my personal opinion. Moving on to projected goals, again coming from 11FI. We're seeing the likes of City, Liverpool and Arsenal dominating that top section. I don't think that's to anybody's shock, to be honest. They do have some absolutely stellar fixtures coming up, as we can see in 6 and 7. It is projecting Arsenal to do extremely well over that period, so moving Saka to Salah could be one of the moves you do for the next 2 to 3 game weeks. I think Saka as well could be a great captaincy option in match day 6. However, looking at some of the fixtures that are going off in that week and some of the performances we've seen from some of other sides this week, Wolves and Newcastle respectively. Salah and Haaland could also be absolutely fantastic captains going forward, and that's why I've said maybe it could be worth considering having all three on the wildcard. There's really good projected data here. Obviously, a lot of the kind of the mid-price midfielders aren't really turning up this season and could be something to potentially consider. I keep outlining it. It is that match day 9, obviously strong projected data for Manchester City, and again, could be a nice route to an Erling Haaland triple captain there. Spurs have got really good projected goal numbers over the next 5 as well. So the likes of Dominic Solanke and Son, who are, for me, are probably going under the radar at the moment, not really getting too much attention, could be great valuable pickups on a game week 6 wildcard as well. Also, we've got to talk about Aston Villa. Obviously, Morgan Rogers finally delivering for his owners. Watkins as well. Duran coming off the bench. They've got plenty of options to get your teeth into. And then Chelsea as well. We've seen Jackson. We've seen Palmer deliver today. The projected goal numbers are looking fairly decent as well. United starting to creep up there. For me, it is going to be around game week 8. I would be looking to jump on United assets because the next two are a little bit shaky. Game week 8 and beyond, though, it's a really good run. If Garnacho can start to see some decent minutes, Bruno can start to get attacking returns. Xerxes been a bit of a monster in terms of expected goals as well, so they could be a team that we start to look towards. And Brentford as well, they've gone on an absolutely fantastic run, so the likes of obviously Mbeumo are definitely going to be on people's radars for these next coming weeks. Bournemouth are an interesting team for the next 2 as well. If you are looking maybe at Semenyo on a wild card, 2.08 is really good, and 1.58. Obviously, you would be looking to shift off him though in game week 8, game week 9, and game week 10. But for those next 2, if you are looking for maybe a short-term midfield punt, he could be a very valuable option. Now, if you aren't on a wild card this week, I think this could be the highest percentage chance of kind of, what is it, a transfer to transfer combination between Jota and Mbeumo. He saw a benching today. It does look like he has potentially lost his place in the starting 11, coming off early in the last game as well. So for me, it probably is time to move away from Diego Jota. If you manage to pick up the points at the start of the season, fantastic, great. Let's move forward. Let's start looking at players that should be replacing him. And for me, the ideal candidate is going to be Bryan Mbeumo. We saw it on the last section. The projected goal numbers are looking absolutely fantastic for Brentford over the next few weeks. 4 goals in 5 games is absolutely stupendous. Now, I do think there is probably going to be a drop-off in terms of Brentford's overall attacking output, just down to that Visser injury, and rotating around with Carvalho, Schade, and of course, what's the other guy's name? Keane Lewis-Potter as well. So there's going to be a little bit of drop-off because the quality isn't as good, and Visser started the season absolutely sensationally. But I think for the price we're playing for Bryan Mbeumo, he is the talisman of this Brentford side. There is no way he's going to be dropped, and the next 2 home fixtures are stellar for me. West Ham looked abysmal at the back today against Chelsea. Wolves as well have been absolutely leaking goals for fun. We saw with the 11-5 model that their projected clean sheet data is absolutely abysmal. So for me, this move from Jota to Mbeumo is probably going to be one of the most top transfer combinations, and I think as well it's a real no-brainer. And if I was on a wild card as well this week, I think Bryan Mbeumo would be one of those first names on the sheet. Like I said, he is the talisman of this Brentford side at 7.1 million for now, and he also takes penalties, so what's not to love here? Now, Nicholas Jackson got himself a brace in the early kickoff today. That now makes it 6 attacking returns so far in 5 games. Nobody really expected this from him after the troll he was last season. Seems like he's got his finishing boots on right now. 13 shots, 8 of those being on target, 12 of those being in the box. Again, that good data that we saw from him last season is also continuing. And again, could be a potential option to consider on the wildcard. Now, for me, the fixtures are a little bit mixed, and I'm not 100% really sure how to call it, and this is probably the reason I would be a little bit sceptical on Nicholas Jackson. As well, they've got Nkunku with Maresca's press conference comments from Thursday, looking like he is going to be the backup 9 or the rotating 9 as well, so we will maybe see early substitutions like we saw today from Maresca, where Jackson came off in the 60th minute. They were obviously 3-0 up in that game. Maybe if they are chasing a game, Jackson might stay on a little bit longer. So that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is those fixtures don't look as good as they seem in terms of the FDR rating. Now, Brighton on paper is a green, so is Forest. They are both home fixtures. However, Brighton have started the season absolutely stupendously, and I don't think that game will be a walkover for Chelsea. And Forest have continued their good XG conceded numbers from last season, taking taking that into this season as well, again, could be a team that could really, really cause Chelsea some difficulty when they are trying to score some goals. We saw it with Mohamed Salah as well. Obviously, Forest set up extremely well at Anfield, and they struggled. Liverpool struggled. Salah was very, very quiet, and a very similar situation could happen to Nicholas Jackson. Then they go to Liverpool away. So again, those three on paper look decent, bar the Liverpool game. However, when you start to do a little bit more deep dive into the data and the statistics and the teams they're actually playing, I don't think they're as good as we're kind of expecting with that one. So I probably would be a little bit put off by potentially going for Nicholas Jackson. I think the fixtures just aren't quite there. And for me, I would prefer going for Ollie Watkins or the next one we are going to talk about, and that is Dominic Solanke. We saw from the 11FI data the projected goal numbers coming up for Spurs look really, really decent. And again, their fixtures on paper, some of them look a little bit tricky, the greys in there. However, again, I feel these are a lot better set than what Nicholas Jackson has got. United away, anything could happen in that game. Brighton, very, very similar situation to Chelsea. I don't really know how to call that one. West Ham have been abysmal. Palace have not started the season great. Villa might be a difficult fixture, but I think just, yeah, for me, Solanke looks like the better option to potentially be going for. I think the fixtures are slightly better. Both aren't ideal. I think the ideal striker on a wild card would be, of course, Ollie Watkins. However, most people will be looking to kind of get Saka in, get a couple premium Arsenal defenders in, maybe obviously Haaland, and maybe they want to try and keep Mohamed Salah as well. So they will be looking for alternatives, and one of those alternatives will either be Nicholas Jackson or Dominic Solanke. And I think if I had to pick between the two right now, I would be picking Dominic Solanke rather than Nicholas Jackson. But let me know what you think about that one down in the comments section. Of course, we couldn't go a Game Week 6 transfer targets video without talking about the Arsenal boys and their great fixture run that is coming up in 6, 7 and 8. Now, I didn't want to obviously focus on the likes of Bukayo Saka. I am more interested to see how they get on tomorrow in terms of the Odegaard situation and whether or not they're still going to be a good attack. Defensively, though, they have picked up from where they were last season in terms of clean sheets. 3 clean sheets so far this season, 1 goal conceded. Absolutely stellar stuff. And a few people in my deadline stream today were asking me, is it plausible to potentially go for triple Arsenal defence or even double Arsenal defence? Because a lot of them are going to be super highly owned. The effective ownership is probably going to be crippling as well. So the only way really to get anything out of it could be maybe going for a double up or a triple up as well. And in this kind of section, I want to see whether or not it is going to be worth doing. Now, the fixtures on paper are incredible. Leicester and Southampton, I definitely would back Arsenal to go and get clean sheets in those as well. So I think those two could be really, really good. And obviously we saw with the projected data as well from 11FI in terms of those clean sheets, that definitely could be an area that could do well. Game Week 8 is the concern though. Obviously away at Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth had a mixed start to the Premier League campaign, but if we look at their expected goal numbers, they are one of the highest teams. They're within the top 5 for chances created and expected goals created, so could cause Arsenal a few issues. I also feel that the Gunners have been slightly fortunate in keeping some of their clean sheets this season. XG conceded of 4.5 and they've only conceded 1, and then the expected clean sheets of 1.5. Again, half of what they've actually got this season, which is 3 as well. So there's probably a little bit of overperformance going on here from the Arsenal boys. You will imagine after the City game as well, there's probably going to be even more XG conceded added to that list. So are the Arsenal defence as good as they once were, or maybe we potentially getting a little bit hazy in our memory and maybe not looking at the data? I think for me, I would be looking at 6 and 7. And I think, yes, they could get a clean sheet. Very, very capable. And I definitely think a double up could be very, very viable at that point. However, Game Week 8 would be the one that would worry me and potentially concern me. And I think if we look to the FPL review projected points model, it has Saka as one of the highest players. And I feel maybe going, rather than a triple up, I would be looking to find a way to go and get Bukayo Saka in for me. He's also not blank so far this season, and I think that's probably a better utilization of obviously using this Arsenal side. And I think in terms of just enjoyment as well, like we all play FPL to have fun and beat our mates. Having triple Arsenal defence is going to be quite a painful watch from behind the sofa, I can't lie. Realistically, you're wanting them just to keep it nil and boring and you know, not concede any chances. Whereas with the attackers, you can have a little bit more fun and watch them score goals and celebrate goals. Celebrating clean sheets is going to be completely different and probably going to be a more kind of tense experience. However, if you do have the stomach for that, it could be worth a little bit of consideration. So I did want to bring it to you. But let's go and take a look at some projected points for the next 5 game weeks. And like I said, finishing up, let's take a look at predicted points. Again, coming from Fantasy Football Hub model from the next 5 game weeks. As we can see, what I've been maybe suggesting of a Haaland, Salah and Saka game week 6 wildcard, if you are thinking about it, could pay dividends here. They are all top 4 projected points, as we can see as well. Haaland clear by a country mile over Mohamed Salah. So maybe if you are on a wild card and maybe you're just looking to go for one of the two, I probably would suggest Haaland is going to be the longer term better option. I think from game week 7 all the way up until game week 11, he does represent the best captaincy option in the game for me, in my personal opinion. And I would imagine that game week 9 game against Southampton is probably skewing these projected points in terms of his favour as well. Interestingly, Cole Palmer's also on this list as well, but I think with him being a little bit of a minutes risk and, you know, some of the Chelsea fixtures we spoke about maybe not being as easy as we thought, that probably for me wouldn't be an option. Foden definitely will. I will be keeping a very, very firm eye on him and seeing how he gets on over the next few weeks as well. Son, also we spoke about him in the very early sections. Again, Solanke both on this list with some decent fixtures coming up for Spurs. Could be assets that you potentially could be looking to pick up in the next few weeks. Brian Mbeumo, who we've obviously spoke about in today's section as my ideal Jota replacement, also features on this list and could be a very, very decent option. We can see Nicholas Jackson as well creeping in down the bottom as well, so could be a very, very good pickup. One that is kind of catching my eye, to be honest, is Chris Wood. Within the top 10 here on this list, and you know what, a player that not a lot of people are looking at the moment. The fixtures for Forest as well aren't that bad. So maybe if you weren't impressed by Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Vardy or any of the other cheaper forward options in today's performances, maybe if you're on a wild card, Chris Wood could still be a very, very great option to go for, and maybe rotate around with some cheaper midfielders, something like that maybe could be more beneficial. Those are all my transfer targets for today's video. Let me know what you think of them down in the comment section below. If you've got any questions as well about your team, get them in, as we will try to answer as many as we possibly can. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in game week 6.